Hele Groot Friday, Jan.
Good morning, Bruce.
I don't know if I got that right. I was trying to greet you in Frya's.
The f-
Hele is certainly right.
held, yeah, held and good vrij, yeah,
Held. Yeah, niet hele.
held, yeah,
Yeah. The pronunciation is one of these things. It's easier when I'm actually reading it to get it right, but
yeah,
yeah, it's hard to remember a language you don't speak. Anyway, I wished you a good Friday, and I we're here to talk about to do our Friday call. We've
hmm
got some translation stuff that we have. We started the what is it, the fifth revision now of the Oera Linda Codex Oera Linda
At
translation
least
into English.
it's the fifth, it's the revision for the fifth printed edition.
Revision for the fifth edition. Yeah, I think it's about our third revision since we started working together.
Yeah, yeah,
And we've gone through down to about the middle of Frya's text, and there's some things we wanted to discuss. And I just wanted to say, so the thing that I really tr- uh, value most about the work we're doing together is the transparency of it all.
hmm
The book that you put out with the Fryas and the English side by side, or one on top of the other, is very transparent in itself. That's what drew me to you immediately. Um, but what we're doing now is putting out these videos so that pretty much we're documenting every step of the way, and so that there's really going to be no question in people's minds after the fact how things happened. Would
hmm
would you agree?
yeah, and they learn also much more
Yeah.
about the translation process and about the text themselves. And for us, it's also a learning curve.
Right, and the learning part, right? Like you said, it's instead of everyone trying to learn it all at once, so that it's a kind of a step by step process, and we're there to accompany people along the way as we learn ourselves.
hmm Yeah, I'll just quickly open the channel also because there may be some use for that as well. Okay. Yeah, about pronunciation, people will have seen that I put up a new video, part of the presentation in Yaure, in
Where
which
you
I
read
read the part in the original language as good as I can.
part of the vormgeschiedenis, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
or primal history. Yeah.
primal history. Yeah, yeah, that's excellent. And there's also the video. I think a few weeks ago in one of our calls we talked about pronunciation as well.
hmm
So there's all kinds of resources out there, plus the wiki, plus the forum to discuss things. It's really exciting how things are moving forward.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with the notes then.
Right. Okay.
Chapter Hidde.
Okay. On my end, I'm just gonna open up the notes too, and so section point one there, Hidde Oera Linda. So that's the first or the second letter where yeah, here was. Can you read out? Do you have it there? Can you read
Yeah.
out the original?
So, well, the sentence you marked was, I rescued them from the flood as with you and your mother, and you marked as yellow without. I wasn't sure what your suggestion would be, or.
Well, this is one of those. This is one of those sentences where we've been back and forth with it, right? I think the Fryas has the word alsa, alsa met jou, and no, jou is Dutch.
Um, Toeliek met die en din moeder.
To leak. Yeah,
Tegelijk met jou en je moeder. At the
yeah,
same time, together with you and your mother.
yeah.
I saved them
Together,
from the flood together with you and your mother.
right? Yeah. So it's together, but it's also it also means as, like to leak, as in the same way, right? So
Like, yeah, to like, yeah.
and so my original problem with together was it seemed like almost an afterthought. I rescued these papers from the flood together with you and your mother. You know, it seemed like an afterthought, and my wife thought the same thing. And the word talik means more like just like with you and your mother. You know, so I changed it to as, but it's one of those points where I've just been, you know, it kind of eats at the back of your mind some of these changes, and I just want to draw your attention to it, that we maybe not here in the call, but that we discuss it. And really, it seems like a small word, but it's right at the beginning of the book, so it's kind of important to get it right. And I didn't want to skip over it. So that's why I marked it. I don't think we're going to come up with a solution here today. Do you have, based on what I just said, do you have any thoughts about whether together or just as, or do you see a big difference there?
We could leave out as altogether also.
Right.
I rescued them from the flood with you and your mother.
Yeah,
it doesn't really have a function to leak.
To leak. It has a, it's there, but you don't really need it, right? Yeah, I've thought about that too. That might be a good solution. Yeah.
Or it could be something completely different, like when I saved your mother, like when I saved you and your mother.
Yeah.
I also saved the book.
Right, because
that's
exactly what I was thinking. Because to leak is almost like at the same time, you know.
Because saving your wife and your child from drowning,
right,
is something big, and it will have been an event that they all remembered.
Right.
And you remember when I saved you and your mother, then I saved this book too as well.
Yeah, that would be the perfect solution.
Something
but
like that.
Too far away from what I had. Okay, well then I think you're right that maybe just completely leaving it out will be a good solution. But we can talk about that off the air. Right now, you understand why I marked it anyway, right?
Yeah. One thing to add for me as a Dutch and maybe Scandinavians too. I don't really understand the as. I trust that is English idiom. But when I first read it, I think, well, isn't that a mistake, the as? But I rescued them from the flood as with you and your mother.
Yeah, that's the other.
I know it's good English, but it's a bit strange.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I marked it. So we'll come up with a better solution for that before the book is published.
Okay. The next thing you also marked yellow. And I suggested to add a note, because I always had Christian reckoning there.
Right.
And it says Kerstenrekenung. Here, Kerstenrekenung. And because of the whole issue of the chronology, which is a very complex thing, the first millennium,
right.
And my idea that it could possibly be the case that the religion that's described in chapter 15c, based on Jesus, Kersten, Buddha, and the author then says, well, this religion will come to the West, and by priesthood. It could have been that originally it was based on Buddha, Kersten, and Jesus from Oera Linda.
From later in the book.
And later it became Christianity.
After the Christianization of kind of.
And because there are some 600 years, 600 or 700 years, possibly too much in our timeline. But this is a very complex thing. But to avoid that, when I changed to Kersten, which is the original word, and put it between quotes, and then in a footnote explain that it could be Christian, but it could also be based on Kersten, then I will leave it to the reader to decide if they will want to read it as Christian or something else.
Yeah, this is one of those where you've got a specific idea about why you wanted to do it, and I have my problems with Kersten. One of them is so one of the solutions I came up with would be just to call it the church. But of course that would be kirka, I think, in the Fryas, right? So it's slightly different, but in modern Dutch, kerst is Christmas, right?
And the kerstening is the word for Christianization. Kerstening.
Yeah.
So this Kersten is a Dutch variety of Christen.
It seems obvious to me that they mean Christian, but of course, it's the church that does the actual math and deciding what year it is.
And in the second letter, it's used again. Nij Kerstenbegrip. And that was the year 803. And I always wondered why this Lico, who is so concerned about their ways being threatened by the monks, why he didn't use the Altland timeline to date his letter, only the Kerstenbegrip timeline. That I found peculiar.
Talks about the monks. That was going to be my question. Which one talks about the monks? Because I think once they start talking about monks, then you can certainly surmise that the church existed.
Well, Lico says the agon en is papa kappa, never let the eyes of a monk, we translate it. Hold on. The eyes of a monk came upon these writings. Papa kappa. So there's an interpretation, which is explained in the footnote. But because he says, hey, they subtly distort all that concerns us Fryas, and then he uses their timeline and not their own. That's strange.
I mean, it's hard to really put yourself in their shoes there. I mean, I would just assume that it's done that way because pretty much everyone is doing time based on the church definition of time at that point.
Well, the later Hidde, he uses both timelines. He says first the Altland, after Altland sank, and then he equates it to a Kerstenrekening, and there may have been a mistake, but because if this is true, then our timeline, it would confirm the timeline as we have it. But if there was a mistake between Lico and Hidde, then it could be that Hidde, Lico, the second letter, the letter from 803, that this was based on Krisen, and then if this really 450 years later, it may have been confused. Well, this is a very complex topic.
I see what you're saying, though. You're saying that maybe one of them, Kerst, refers to something different than Kerst in the other letter.
The meaning of Kersten may have changed in these years.
Those hundreds of years. Plus, you never know if the person copying it maybe made, did some updating.
Changes, Hidde could have, in his mind, corrected it or left the Altland timeline out here because he thought it was not correct, because of the confusion created by the church in those years. This is a speculation all by me, but that's why it's safer, I think, to leave Kersten as it is and explain in a footnote.
Okay. And up to now, we don't have any footnote there, right? It's just...
this is my suggestion, and how it's formulated, you should have a look at if it's phrased, well phrased.
All right. Well, we'll look at that then further before publication. Okay, so then that's the first part. Now we're down into the Book of Adela followers, right? And the main part of the Oera Linda. So at times they played and cheered in the yard. So this is one we've talked about several times. Tulden and Jolden, which I love those words. I wish we could just leave them there. They're so much. They're so much more expressive. in the past, I think, didn't Sandbach, he translated as gamboled, which was one of my earlier suggestions.
It's a bit, I have to reorganize my screens because I'm... Hold on.
Okay.
No, yeah, I'll do it by the notes here.
Yeah.
Twildon and Yuldon. Twildon, tuilen is clearly spelen, dartelen.
Right. Yeah.
And Yulen has to do with sound, making sound, noise.
Right.
In a cheerful way, probably, mostly. Zich luidruchtig, druk en dartel gedragen, hè? Vrolijk.
Yeah, my first suggestion there originally, I think, was sang together, right? I said played and sang.
Yeah.
But then we talked about that because Jolen is not just singing. That's that.
Yulen, I cannot imitate it, but it's something you hear sometimes. I think from other cultures where they. I've heard people make this sort of sound. I don't know.
It's just little kids being loud,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. But since
so
Yule is also the wheel,
yeah,
and Yulen, and it is an important term, and rollick is also play. So they played and played.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. So
you're right about that. So what I came up with now, I did a little bit more digging into this, and what I came up with is, hang on a second, I gotta find which. There it is. So rollick, you're right. So there's the word frolic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you rollicking actually has to do with sound, to tell you the truth. So if you say something like today we would use it like they had a rollicking good time. Mm-hmm. You imagine not only dancing but also lots of noise. Probably lots of drinking in the way it's used nowadays. I think that's why Sandbach used gambol, because it's the same thing. It's like loudly playing. Mm-hmm. There's the word cavort, which also is like playing and being loud at the same time, or romping. So I thought maybe played and romped together in the yard. Because the problem with cheer is that it really doesn't mean what you think it means.
Okay.
It doesn't. To cheer is, you can cheer someone up if they're sad. You can cheer for a team, which is the loud thing that you're thinking of, right? You're cheering something on. But to cheer together really doesn't make a whole lot of sense in English. People will understand what it means, but it's not gonna give the same sense as jolen. In my opinion, because
is there in German? Is there a word which would cover it?
Jauchen,
juichen, yeah,
jauchen,
juichen. What a poor language English is, really. I noticed many times it's not my favorite language. It's not why I made an English translation, because I like it so much.
Yeah.
I often run into cases that I think, well, it's such a well, some words obviously are preserved better in English than in Dutch or in German, but much is so much corrupted, and
a lot of the expressive words have gotten lost. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I thought jolen would be good, but it really for me, rollick is the closest. But I'd be interested to see what I find online for jauchzen. I didn't even think of trying that.
We hebben ook nog jubelen in het Duits en Nederlands. Jubelen, jubel.
You can say jubilated.
En juichen in English is cheer again, yeah.
Whooped.
What?
Is the translation whooping? So that's actually not bad. They played and whooped. That's not a bad solution, Jan. WHOOP.
Yeah.
It literally just means.
Okay, it's even translated as Yulde. They whooped.
Yeah. So and it's close, right? It probably comes from the same word.
Whooped.
Just.
How
Wait,
did they get whooped? I heard once. It means how did they get their asses kicked?
that's yeah. Whoop also means to get your ass kicked.
A loud cry of joy or excitement. Well, that's might cover it.
It's
They
actually
played and whooped
together in
together
the
about the yard.
yeah. Just for fun, I would just put it into Google. Google has, it really is good for
Uh-huh.
searching specific turns of phrase. So I'm just going to put in quotes "played and whooped" and see.
Yeah, I often do that too. But
Yeah, especially Google, though, as a search engine, is really good for finding specific language. He played and whooped them good. There you get the ass beat meaning. Played and whooped it up on Friday night. So yeah, that's that meaning that we have here. So we have both whooped his ass as well as whooped it up. That's the difference, right?
okay, for now I'll put in whooped here.
Yeah, you don't have to say whooped it up though. They played and whooped. I think that really fits.
Okay, let's move on then.
Yeah. That's how long it takes to just come up with a little word sometimes.
Yeah, people will better understand the whole process and how much time it took. Because really, and also now with the Dutch translation that I'm making, some sentences are really easy. And then one little word takes me half a day.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the fun of it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mountains of Gold, this has been a contentious one out in the public, and I don't have a real problem with it, but the problem with Mountains of Gold is it doesn't have that idea of something completely unrealistic, like a mountain of gold. For me, a mountain of gold would be a couple pieces,
Well, that's already the corruption of language, because a mountain is not a little pile.
Well, yeah, well that's true, but to me, a mountain might be something different to somebody else. Whereas the Q met what's the exact?
The koe met gouden horns. And my idea is to really go back to because really this is also to explain. I have to decide for a certain translation, but it doesn't mean that I'm fully satisfied with it. It's true that Mountains of Gold is an English expression, but it does take away the imagery, the metaphor, which explains how the people think, and that's a thing I want to go back to more the way of how they thought, the metaphors they used, and then we can still explain it in a footnote. If a reader reads, they promise them cows with golden horns, and they see there is a footnote, or especially when they don't really understand what it means, they can easily find out, especially with the explanation, is an expression still existing in Dutch, meaning proposing good things that will never come true, like unending riches or mountains of gold.
Right. So if we were going to leave it, change the metaphor slightly, I think unending riches would be better, because it's got that unending, which is obviously not realistic. Riches end, and a mountain has a definite end, which so it's almost not it doesn't go far enough. So that's why I suggested unending riches. But so you're saying that you'd like to put in cows with golden horns and switch
really,
around?
Just a second. About a mountain of gold is impossible.
Okay, yeah.
A mountain is really huge, and it doesn't exist. It is not possible. So,
but it still has an end. Whereas a cow with golden horns it's like the goose that lays the golden eggs. It never ends, right?
Well, it's technically possible to have a cow, and then, like we have golden implants of teeth, you could give a cow golden horns and
put
then give it to someone. So it's also not unending. It would be technically possible. Yeah. So
in Germany, there's this story that would be good if we're doing it in German. There's the I think it's the ass that craps gold or something.
ezeltje strekje.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's enough for
Well, I'm interested. So, is
Oh,
your
wait,
is
I
your
want to
intention to
include
change it
something
around
here
now?
before we continue.
Yeah.
To the listeners, if you have suggestions or ideas or opinions about one of the things we discuss,
Mm.
please leave them in the message below the video. We'd be interested to read your opinion as well.
Right. Yeah, they can read and see which points we're discussing here, and that would be great. Yeah. Yeah. Getting more heads into the game is definitely one of the main goals of these videos.
Yeah, there's even a thread on the forum which people can use for that as well. Language and etymology. There's a recent thread with and on the last. Here I gave some examples of one text that could be improved, and so people can think about it and give their opinion.
Right, but also directly in the comments below is just as good. We read them all.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to number 3 then. I think we've discussed that one enough. Yeah. The emulators of slaves. This sentence is full of questions, right? So what I realized when I read through it is that we kind of got the causality backwards in the second clause, right? Da KLÍWADON de hertogen edelingen aan boord. So, KLÍWADON is.
I made a word study of that.
Okay. Did you put it on the wiki?
Yeah, this morning, improvised. So it's not complete yet, but
the way
KLÍWA, KLÍWA can mean different things. I'll make the screen a little bit larger. So here are the varieties in the different texts. Mostly with a W, and this time only with a V, but it must be the same verb.
Yeah.
In Dutch, kleven or klimmen, climb. It can all mean climb, cling, clamp. And on board, because it seems to be an expression, KLÍWADON aan boord.
Well, we've actually got exactly. It's an idiom. That's what I kind of realized, and we talked about it, and then and we had it backwards. We said that they were able to get the nobles and leaders on board with their with the agenda of the magus, but it's the other way around, that they climbed on board, so to speak, with they I said maybe whispered in their ears, even though it doesn't say anything about whispering, but basically they got close to. There is the word in English. It's not archaic, but it's not something you use every day. The word cleave.
Oh yeah, cleave.
In English means both to cut. So a cleaver is a big thing you use to cut meat, but to cleave to something means to stick by, to make yourself sticky, to not move away from. So you could say they cleaved to the military leaders, right? That on board thing is not going to be able to be put in there if you use cleave.
Well, board doesn't have to be ship's board.
Doesn't have to be.
It can be like border side to the side, and that's you can visualize that easily.
Yeah, cleave to the sides. Yeah.
They were not. They were hanging around them all the time.
Right. Being warm
to them and trying to influence them.
Yes.
So they were sticking on their side or clinging.
Right.
Clamping. So I don't know how you would say that in English.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'll have to sit down with a keyboard and try to do it. But it's also something that really, if somebody in the comments has a suggestion, this is, if you understand where we're going with this, it's we need to come up with a way to say that they hung around in modern language.
Yeah. What about clung to their side?
They clung to their side. Yeah. They clung to this. Yeah. They clung to the sides.
To their side.
To the sides of the military leaders and nobles, right?
Yeah.
They
zich aan hen vastklampen.
Yeah. Vastklammeren. So yeah. Yeah, I mean that's definitely the direction we're going for. I would have to think about it exactly whether clung to the sides is the perfect idiom or not. That's but at any rate, we need to switch it around, because it's not that they got the nobles and the leaders on board of their agenda, but they clung to the sides to their sides in order to get them to convince them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you want to talk about this word because at the beginning also, or
because no, I think that's correct, because like you say, they were the children that were kidnapped.
Correct. Yeah.
And yeah. Otherwise it could have been when they spoke our language, when they had learned our language, they did that. And if they had been really little children when they were kidnapped, that could be true. But no, I think this makes sense, and it's very well possible that it's a good translation. Yeah.
Good.
So
the seven islands is the next thing, I guess. Where you have in a footnote that the seven islands are likely some islands that were in the Scheldt Delta or one of the rivers that wouldn't exist anymore because they're underwater. I don't know.
No. I mean, the province of Zeeland in the Netherlands has several. Well, then maybe technically they're no longer islands anymore because they are connected with dikes.
There's more lake. There's more land. Yeah. So basically Zeeland.
This area.
Yeah.
And they're no longer seven anyway.
Right.
But hold on.
Did you count them?
No, even on old maps. And 7 was a symbolic number anyway, so...
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I agree with that. I just, it was something that I was unsure about, and I marked it, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Ja. Dag ja, BLÁT KÉMON. This is, I think we both agree that maybe naked is not the right thing to put here. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not about the nakedness. It's about just being born. They had just been born. They had just emerged or came into existence, as Sandbach had. Blatt, blow, in German blows. It's like bold also, with nothing, bare.
Yeah, with nothing was my...
but I think it's too much. Came into the world devoid of all things. It makes it too complicated, especially when you look at the original.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In my video the other day when I read this section, I just said with nothing rather than devoid of all things. But so blot for me, that's what it means. It means that they didn't have anything, not that they didn't have any clothes on, but that they didn't have anything, including life force.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would assume, because I mean, before Wralda fed them with his breath, then what did they have? They had a form. It's a lot like the story.
Well, okay, that's a different interpretation. You can say because they had nothing, or when they emerged. The da can both mean because or when.
When, yeah. When blot came. So you're saying blot meaning in the sense of they had just come, right?
Yeah.
Like as soon as they came, yeah.
The da points to the moment when they received the breath and not the reason.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Yeah. Dag je blot came. When they first arrived.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's probably the best solution. Be interested to see if anyone else has an opinion.
I was 4 of our children were born without assistance, without midwife being there, and 2 of the children
you were
being born, so it's a special moment when a child first comes into the world and has not breathed yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, they have the navel cord, so they don't have to breathe yet. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, Jan. That's great. Good thing that you watched your children being born. We wouldn't have come up with this solution.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
Then I think that
you'll
was
think about that, and maybe some of the viewers, listeners will come up with something.
Mhm.
Then we can move on to the next. Oh yeah, first we had Wralda's odd entered into them,
Yeah.
and then you change it to they were penetrated by Wralda's odd.
Yeah, I mean, because then we've got binnentreden.
Yeah, yeah. Like I explained on the forum, penetrate sounds a bit too rude in this context to me. Of course, binnentreden, penetrate. I think binnentreden is the original form of penetrate. Just like treda, intreda would be enter, entree. But I would like to keep Wralda's odd the subject of the sentence.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah.
it is here in the yellow.
But yeah, it is the subject of the original
And
sentence. That's true. Yeah.
Here they has become the subject again.
I wanted to crowbar in penetrate because I really think that is a good cognate.
Yeah, a good cognate it is, but isn't it too rude or too plastic, too
Too pornographic, you mean?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly. Yeah. It certainly entered into them, and it keeps Wralda's Ott as the subject, and it's somewhat more decent. So I agree. I told you that, some of the suggestions I was making are maybe a little over the top or unnecessary, but
well, sometimes before we move to your other notes, I added one about the same chapter.
Okay.
Ringa riep weer rond Creonia vreugde en NOCHTA aan de DRÁMA.
Yeah.
And when it was first proofread, it was already someone suggested to say they became fruitful. Ze werden vruchtbaar.
Yeah.
I always thought fruitful meant something like joyful, or so when I looked it up, I thought, oh my, this is not actually how I would like to have it translated. Because I think they really started having dreams about fruits and nuts. Fruits and nuts have to do with procreation as well.
Certainly.
With fertility. And the words are ambiguous because they can also mean Freude and Vergnügen in German, and in Dutch Vreugde en Genoegen of Genot. We can explain that in a footnote.
Basically. It's a word game that somebody's put in here. It's probably one of the reasons why they say it's a fake, because of this kind of language. Where
no, not at all. I think language was richer because it had much more meaning. It had more ambiguity, and it's possible that it wasn't originally ambiguous at all. They literally meant they dreamt of fruit and nuts and other things having to do with procreation.
Yeah. And
later it got the meaning of Freude, joy and pleasure.
It's a tough one to translate because you don't want to... It sounds funny to say that they dreamed of fruit and nuts, right? But I mean, literally that's what it says.
Then you need a footnote to explain it.
Yes. It depends on how you read it, because you could say kraaien vruchten en NOCHTA aan de DRÁMA.
Yeah,
or
they received fruits and also nuts in their dreams.
and also enjoyed their dreams.
But that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense. But okay, so that one's going to be a lot different in the next published version. At any rate, we don't know exactly the final form, but. Yeah.
So, Lyda was black.
Yeah.
Boundless Lyda. And in the first three editions I had athletic.
Athletic, yeah, which
and
sounds...
And then in the fourth we had hardy.
Hardy, yeah.
And now it's boundless.
The thing is, they say RAD.BVWDE, and that's a great, I mean, and we've got, like I told you, in English, like you could still say somebody's got a rad bod, right? Lyda had a rad bod, which is very, very modern, but it doesn't really, athletic is probably the closest thing, but it just is not very fitting style-wise. The point being that she could bend a tree, but at the same time she could run across a field of flowers without bending one. So she was like super strong, could bend a tree, but wouldn't even bend a flower if she
Yeah.
ran across the field. So she was like crazy athletic, crazy RÄD.BVWDE. It's the perfect word almost, but I chose boundless because it just expresses that like there was no bound to her physical ability.
Yeah.
And I still like it. I like it best of all of the translations that we've come up with so far. But this is one of the ones where maybe I would ask people to put something in the
Yeah.
in the comments.
Can I add something? When I looked up in the and GTB, by the way, is a very good source for the Dutch to look up old words, and I looked up RAD.
Yeah.
And I found that it's for horses. It's used for they can run very well. They're not lame. But for people, as a property of persons, often approaching hefty. And in Dutch, it would be fix or flink. And hefty, when I looked it up in Word Web,
just means strong.
It says physical strength and weight, rugged and powerful, a hefty athlete.
Yeah, because that doesn't fit because a hefty person is going to bend all of the flower stems.
Yeah,
across the
they're
field.
heavy and weight. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a king, RÄD.BVWDE, right?
Yeah, RÄD.BVWDE, yeah. Yeah.
It's,
but the meaning of that name is not clear.
Yeah. Yeah, but obviously it's a word that existed back then and doesn't really exist anymore. I wish we could just leave it. It's one of the few words where I can't really come up with anything that except boundless, which you can say somebody has boundless strength, so that's why I came up with that. And boundless would mean that in both directions. So as far as being very gentle and very strong, there's no bounds.
Yeah. And once more, why is athletic not good here?
Well, I mean, it's a very modern kind of a thought, right? To be athletic is somebody who's I don't know. Maybe people will in the comments will say, no, it's ridiculous. You should be athletic, but I don't think it expresses enough either. It's athletic. I don't know. You just think of somebody who can run fast or something.
Because
but
there's something about strength in the explanation.
There is something about strength
and about being very
movable. Yeah.
Physically she has a good control of her physical abilities.
Yeah, I understand why athletic was there.
We can leave it for now and think
we'll
about
leave it for the call, but we'll figure it out, and maybe people can help us. Flink doesn't really do it either because it leaves out the other end.
Yeah.
Okay, in the text, Tuvral's, this one we discussed already. This one we certainly can't discuss here because it's too much of a bone of contention between us, I think, too.
Well, it's already in one of the earlier chats, and I still I will read what I still don't like the idea of a prescribed manner of thinking Wralda. It doesn't feel Frya's to me. Like you don't have the freedom to choose your own way of thinking Wralda. You have to sit on your knees. It really feels like priesthood telling you what to do and what you shouldn't do.
Absolutely. Grammatically, it's hard to, grammatically it's hard to say definitely it means to Wralda's spirit alone should the knee be bent in gratitude, but contextually, certainly that would make most sense. It's just because the grammar keeps jumping out at me that I didn't to not discuss it.
There are more examples in the various texts where the word order is not as we would expect it as Dutch or Germans or Frisians.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So it's very well possible that it's exactly meant how the current translation is.
Yeah, no, I think it is too. I just didn't want to skip over it again.
Okay.
Because it just keeps jumping out at me.
Fair enough. There's a very nice one here in Frya's text.
Yeah.
But you noticed, I hadn't noticed that. Because plural and singular are often not very consequent in the original.
Yeah.
I gave a few examples, I sent them to you, but In this case, it's very well possible and probable that they did mean plural here. Let me get the explain folly. You shall.
It's about where where a foreigner or a non-Frya's person wants to marry one of their daughters, and up
The
to
other
now
way
we
around.
have
A daughter wants to marry a foreigner.
right. Yeah, well, she wants and she agrees. Then before we had you should explain her folly to her, and then I realized that it's actually plural, and that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That you would explain both of them their folly, right?
Yeah. So I accepted the change immediately.
Okay.
10.
It's a nuance.
Ja, dan, hold on. Dan skilleni je jara dumheid betuta. Yeah, yara, ja and yara is mostly plural. It is plural. There are examples of plural being used when it should be singular, clearly, or the other way around. But in this case, ja, yara, because it also said dat ja dan mit vrede ga. That they may go in peace.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's where it jumped out at me, because they definitely use it plural there.
Yeah.
And I think it's a nuance, but it kind of puts the Frya's people into a slightly different light, a little bit less. I didn't take my daughter aside and tell her what an idiot she is for marrying this guy. I sat both of them down and said, look, what are your babies going to be? Are they going to be Frya's, or are they going to be Sachsen, or are they going to be,
Well, Saxons will not have been a big problem, I think, but
right.
Well, perhaps at that time.
Probably at that time, yeah.
Because it's a text Frya, so any mixture of outside. Even in the time of Adela, she also already didn't want to have anything to do with the Danes anymore.
Right.
The other side of the Weser, because they had become different. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for accepting that. I'm glad, it's
and let me say, I accepted most of the little changes, and they can be seen when people are interested. When you go to the wiki and you go to recent changes, I'll just show that. You will see that. Well, here's the word study I added this morning. And sometimes there are minor changes with an M. This is not very significant, but here these are the edits that you suggested and that I changed in the last 2 days.
So there's a change log that shows every single thing. And are you able to click back to the thing that happened before the change, or no?
Yeah, I'll give an example. I don't know if there are many changes here. And then you look at view history. And then you do compare. The previous one was the 5th of February and now the 15th of June. Compare selected revisions.
Okay.
And then here you see exactly, here it is in yellow and here it is in blue.
How cool is that?
You have enjoyed for what you enjoy now, and for the hope of providence in troubled times. And now it is for what you have received, for what you have, and for the hope of guidance in troubled times. I thought this was self-evident. That's why I never explained it to you. But I hear that you see this for the first time now.
Yeah, technology is, I use it, but really just on the surface.
There's many things I don't know yet, but this is very handy.
That's cool, yeah.
And it's also on the normal Wikipedia. You can do the same, eh?
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
And also, there can be sometimes discussion. Here it is not added yet, but you can add a discussion here, or start a discussion, or join a discussion, and edit. So this is for people who have the editing status. But as a viewer, you can also always view what has been changed, or what has been most original. For example. Going back, and I want to have all the changes since the beginning. Well, then there will be so much.
Oh, you can even do that. Okay.
Yeah, you can choose whatever. You can choose between here and here, or between here and here.
Very cool.
So whatever you like. Okay.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, so we're down to the end here. I marked C campaigners. It's something we've talked about at length, but I don't know exactly why I wanted to talk about this again. I think there's not really much to talk about here. I think the reason I marked it here is because in the next sentence, they call them. They don't call them SÉ.KÄMPAR, they call them something slightly different. And so we have C campaigners in one sentence and then C warriors or something in the next sentence. I would have to, do you have it there?
I think I even did a word study once, because Kempa is often fight, but not always.
Yeah, it can be just camping, right?
Yeah, or and in some context, yeah, we here is still see warriors, champions. It could be
champions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had it in different. We translated in different ways throughout.
And here we even kept the original word SÉ.KÄMPAR, because SÉ.KAMBRI, because it is a suggestion that it could be the SÉ.KAMBRI tribe.
Right.
From the Latin text.
I'm sure that's the truth. Okay, but this is something we're going to have to, because there's some contextual inconsistency there, and I don't have that in front of me, so we'll have to talk about it off the air. But the last thing here is something that you added. Oh, that's the krajan here.
Yeah, we already did that. And then there's actually, you had some extra notes that I got later.
Almost forgot about that. Let's see if we can fly through those, just a couple of them. Do you have it in front of you, or? The Yulefeast, the 12th Yulefeast in the Primal History. So right before the three girls are born, they talk about after het 12th Yulefeast, party.
There you three among it, huh?
Yeah. But so Yulefeast, you think of, and it does say verste, but there were no people yet.
Yeah.
So how are you going to have a feast? First also just means like the day, right? The holiday, the Yule celebration. But so I was thinking maybe we should change it just to the Yule tide again or something, or the 12th Yule or something at this point. Because like, who's feasting if nobody's been born yet? But
well, who knows? Who knows?
It's a tough one, yeah.
Spirit world, or plants, animals. I don't know.
Right, yeah. Wralda, Irta, and the Kroder, maybe.
They could be having a good time together. Okay, yeah, Yulefeast. First, yeah.
It's just something that jumped out of me. Wait a second, there's no people. Who's feasting?
Yeah.
But something we can talk about another time.
Whoever saw them came in their spell. I'll have a quick look.
Yeah,
spiders' webs. I looked it up, and I first didn't like the new word because it was so strange to me. But here it's gone. The suggestion.
Oh, gossamer. Yeah,
gossamer. Yeah.
I added another word though, because I thought it was just like, as far as the meter of the sentence, so the kind of the flow of it. I would like to have strands at the end. So fine as gossamer strands.
Okay, yeah, that's more poetic. Because cobweb, which was another idea, is more associated to messy attic or something. Yeah, it's dust and.
No, they mean gossamer. They mean something. They don't mean. They mean spiders' webs, of course, but that sounds also. A lot of people are freaked out by spiders. And
in the original word, it doesn't have the spider in it. It has rach.
Yeah.
Rach, and rach fijn is an expression like really fine threads, and because they were people they had a lot with textile. So they will have had good words for describing very thin threads, like silk. And rach doesn't have to be connected to spiders.
Correct. Yeah, that's why I chose gossamer. Just it's an old word, it's a beautiful poetic word.
Yep.
And so with saw, when I said up to now we say seductive Finda, her eyes were alluring and sly, and whoever saw them came under their spell. I realized that behold would be good, or gazed upon them would be even better. Whoever gazed upon them came under their spell. Or gazed.
Yeah. Are you
Thinks
still there?
a
Yeah.
little bit too, you don't come under their spell just by seeing them.
No.
Like from a distance, you might see her eyes. You're not going to come under their spell. You have to gaze into them, or you have to behold them. And the word in Frya's is Zian, right? I think.
Xian,
Yeah. So we just immediately jump to see, but I think to gaze upon them, or to gaze into them, gaze upon them, I think would be best.
Okay, I should have a good look at that when I have more time.
Yeah, exactly. This was just something I threw at you this morning. Yeah. So thanks.
I wonder if there's still a possibility to add some nice visuals into this video, because we have been mostly into the text and into the screen. Were there things to add? Well, I already said I added a new video. I will still try to edit more of that presentation. Because it's now these 4 parts, the last being really short, these 2 being questions and answers. And of this was the first part, 24 minutes, but there's still 40 minutes before the break that I need to edit.
Okay.
And I have started doing that, but it's a lot of work. And again, I have to do a lot of preparations for the renovation of the house in the coming time. Yeah,
and I'm starting a new job in about 20 minutes.
Oh, so, yeah.
The presentations there are in Dutch, of course, but there are English subtitles.
Yeah, not only English, German also, and Danish and Swedish.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So that's wonderful for people who want to see that, and for posterity.
Okay. As far as my channel goes, I'm going to put up some new videos. I took down my Oera Linda videos, but I'm going to put this call up and basically stick to translation issues. I want to talk about this one I've got planned doing, just talking about the word Wralda and some of its derivations, and and then of course the things about maritime history that I'm very interested in, that I'm going to put up too. But people here might not be so interested in that, but we'll see. My channel is going to put up new videos. I took down the old ones because some of them were just too controversial, and I don't want to create any controversy. I just want to translate and make sure that this text is as accurately and pleasingly translated as possible for English speakers.
Yeah, Wralda could be a very interesting topic for a video.
Yeah.
Before you put up the video, it might be good to see if I can add some things to the things you have.
That's a good idea.
If you like.
Well, thank you, Jan. I've got to get ready for work.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce, and I'll edit the video and send you a link.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.